You've been asked to do some research about where we could be possibly leaving money on the table as a part of your sales operations duties. There's so many things to think about, and it's really, really easy to get overwhelmed with things like this because you want to make sure that you're delivering the right information, you're delivering it in a way where people can understand it, and you're actually giving them what they need. And a lot of the times, unfortunately, what happens is we don't end up actually answering the question because you can get really, really lost in the weeds. So there's so many things to look out for. I would firstly recommend that you put the actual question of what you're supposed to be answering on every single slide. You can remove it at the end if you want to, but if you put it on every single slide, you have to ask yourself that question every single time you start digging into the data and looking for other stuff. And then you want to write out all of the lists of the major questions that you've got in your head that could help you to answer what the major question is. You won't necessarily have to put them in order, but if the question is, where are we leaving money on the table, then you want to be asking, well, how much money are we supposed to be making? What is our profit margin supposed to be? And then look at, okay, so what is it overall? Is it different depending on account, depending on your client? Is it different depending on the salesperson that's managing these different accounts? Does it differ depending on type of year? Does it differ depending on what the sub offerings are? Look at where it differs, and then once you've compiled all of this information, other questions will start to come to you to basically say, this looks like it's aligned with that, and then you could start pulling your graphs together to see if there's any kind of correlation. But you will not have all 50 questions that you need to answer in the beginning. You'll have maybe 5 or 6, and it's okay to start with those and then carry on digging around. But the reason why I say to make sure that you are always answering the actual question that was answered is because when you come to deliver this presentation and they say, okay, so what's the answer to this? You should be able to answer. You should be able to say, this is the answer to this, and let me tell you why, rather than let me take you on this big long story. Because yes, telling the story is important, but also the delivery of the story that you're telling and the explanation that you're giving is important. And the people who you're delivering it to do not have time to wait for the drop line. You want to tell them what they need to know and then tell them the supportive information behind it, because they'll already be interested depending on whatever the answer is. And that's okay to go that way around. Here's the answer, here's the results explaining the answer, because they'll already be forming the questions in their head. So come up with your handful of questions, start digging, make sure you're always answering the question with what you're digging. And then it's about presentation, which I'll probably have to do a separate video about.